What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Absolute Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hunt, and I'm back with another episode. And today I have a guest on. It's been a minute since I brought on a guest. Today's a good one. Today we have Emily Schromm. Emily has a lot of talking points. We could have went 100 different directions with this podcast. I mean, she's been on MTV's Real World, done the challenges, and then she's transitioned from Emily, the MTV Real World girl, to Emily, the fitness pro, which we've mostly talked about the fitness side and all the projects she has going on in the fitness realm right now. It was a cool conversation, fascinating, talked about a lot of different stuff, ended with a cool conversation on gut health. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. So let's get to the episode. Without further ado, Emily. Emily, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You have a lot of talking points, a lot of directions we could go with this.
Ooh, yeah, I'm very curious where you're going to take this. Lots of things going on.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by people who have a bunch of talking points, especially like on the podcast specifically. Like, some people I bring on, it's like, okay, I bring you on for a specific reason. Like, we know what we're going to talk about. But for a lot of times, I like to bring on guests that we can talk about 100 different things because really, it's unique to this podcast. Like if someone only has like one topic they talk about, they tend to talk about that on every single podcast.
Yeah, totally. And I definitely have my passion topics,
Yeah.
Who knows? But I'm a health and wellness entrepreneur and I wear a ton of hats. So I think that I am fully able to go anywhere you want to take it. And I would just love to connect with somebody that's doing what I'm also trying to do and just getting the message of good stuff out there. So
it's wild. Like it's there's a lot of downsides to social media and the current landscape, I guess, of online fitness, but there's a ton of upsides too. Like just like take us, for example, like we were able to do what we love. We're able to connect with other people who are doing what they love. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible, or it would have been a lot more difficult at least.
I know. And I think it's just this double-edged sword, right? So people it's so great for somebody that is in the online space to get their word out, but then you also have to navigate all the negativity that can come with that. So it can go both ways. So I think that's what's so cool about it is it's always evolving. And then you also have to understand your personality type in that space. It can easily become an unhealthy thing if you are an online entrepreneur. It tends to just take over our life. And as we know, technology can affect our hormones. And so I think it's just really cool to navigate that space. As I'm learning about it, I'm also living it, and same for you. So yeah,
100%. It's easy to have it take over your life, especially when you make money doing it. It's like, when did we put it down?
Totally. I mean, it is, and more so than the money, it's like when you truly find what makes you light up, right? So when you are in that flow state, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a burden, even though your body is still energetically expending and outputting. It's so hard to say, like, you have to force time off basically, because if you don't, then you will hit that place of burnout. But it's so hard to take time off when you're like, but I feel so good. I feel like I'm in the flow and I just want to keep doing it. You almost have to like put the brakes on even before you're ready to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you explain it like that because it's exactly how I feel. Like I'll be sitting at my desk working. I'll be like working on client programs or ebook I'm working on or something, and the time just goes away. And I'll look up and I'm like, oh, it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't do anything tonight except for work.
I know. Yeah, you have to be. And then it's so interesting because even though that's such an addictive feeling, because how often were we in jobs that we hated, right?
Oh, of course.
It feels so good and you feel so grateful and you're also like, this is the best. It can so easily backfire because you start to see, for example, the simplest example, as you know, like sitting down for too long, all of a sudden you get up and your hip flexors are really tight. And then you try to go to the gym and your squat session sucks because you sat down the whole day. So I think it's just one of those constantly reminding yourself, especially in the health and fitness world, like the taking care of self, holy shit. So important before you constantly output. And I catch myself doing it all all the time. So I'm really obsessed with spirit animals. Do you have a spirit animal, by the way?
I don't have one. I probably should though.
Well, this is just ironic because every time every morning I have this like spirit animal card thing that I pull. This is like super woo woo, total hippie. So I apologize that I'm jumping into this before people really know. But what it says is like the line that I love: nourish your soul so that you can nourish others. And I like constantly have to remind myself that, because our best work as an entrepreneur is always when we feel taken care of and our needs are met. And so whether that's putting it in my calendar or blocking off certain times, even if I don't think I need it, if I add that in, then my work becomes way more valuable.
Yeah. Did you read Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans?
No, I haven't.
Well, because one of the things he does is, I think that's one of the questions he asks, I think almost like throughout the entire book on all the people that are featured in the book, is what is your spirit animal? So as I'm reading the book, I'm like getting all these examples and I'm thinking, and I'm like, I don't know, like this is pretty interesting, but I've never looked into it enough.
I didn't know he asked that.
Yeah. It's one of the questions he asks.
That's so funny. Yeah, I've done that. I've done that. So I have a tea company, and every order of tea comes with a spirit animal card. And when I found my spirit animal about 7 years ago, it just changed my life. It was like, this makes sense. This totally makes sense why I am the way I am. And it's just like personality test, right?
Yeah.
But it is really cool. I think every animal has a sign to give you, and it's fun to help people figure out their spirit animal. So that's a huge piece of my podcast. So I love that.
Really, what have you been doing on your podcast?
So my podcast is Meathead Hippie.
Yeah, so interesting name.
Well, it's perfect because it used to be, when I first started it, I knew I just wanted to connect with people a little bit differently, right? Mm-hmm. So similarly to, kind of how you start a podcast, it's like you're saying the same things over, or you feel like you have these programs and they have all this information in it, but you just yourself, I wanted to interview people so that I felt like I was expanding my own horizon, right? So I felt like I really wanted to connect with people. And the more that I started off, my first business was all in-person coaching and training. And so when over the last few years, as it goes fully online, that was the thing I was missing. So just like we talked about before we started, it's like that coffee talk that fills my soul, right? So I wanted to interview interesting people, and that's kind of the only reason I started it, was just for my own selfish reasons. But it was named MFit Radio because I felt so obligated to brand appropriately. Yep. And I just totally missed the mark, because I was like, I'm not proud of this name. This isn't a name that like represents who I am. And when I was talking to my boyfriend, Bradford, I was like, I just don't even know, like, if he put me into 2 words or 3 words, I feel like I have so many hats and I have so many things. Like, I don't even know where to begin. He's like, well, you're like the ultimate meathead hippie. Like,
yeah, that's perfect.
It's like, I love bicep curls. I love squats and deadlifts, but I also am so woo-woo. I'm obsessed with spirit animals and Palo Santo and float tanks and all the things that help me stay me. And so it's just a combination of interviews, sometimes just straight strength and adrenals and how that all ties in, and recovery and badassery. But a lot of times it's just navigating your way in this world through tools of herbs and Palo Santo.
Yeah, no, I love that, because actually I kind of went through the same thing. So when I initially started this podcast, I'm like, oh, Absolute Strength is going to be like the perfect name. We're going to talk about powerlifting and strength stuff all the time, which we definitely do. I mean, that's one of my interests, definitely something I talk about, but it's so much more than that. I mean, there's so many episodes that we don't even touch on lifting weights at all. So it's like, I'm kind of in that. It's like, oh, well, it's named that. Everyone knows it's that, but it's not necessarily directly related to what the topics are.
That's why they got to listen. And then when they listen, they're hooked, right?
Yeah, exactly. What was your first job in the fitness industry? Was it personal training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I started off in Missouri, and through a very random encounter when I was working at Starbucks, actually got picked to be on reality TV through Real World DC. So it was this whirlwind of a ride that I wasn't ready. Well, I was ready, but I wasn't prepared for. So when I came back to Missouri, I was like, oh my God, I do not want to be here. I have to get out of here. So I applied to Starbucks in the mountains, and that's really how I got into Colorado and snowboarding, and then into fitness, and really being unhappy with myself because of watching yourself on TV and how hard that can be. It was this light bulb moment of like, I can run away as much as I want. I'm still going to never be happy with what I see in the mirror until I start to work on me from the inside out. And that was my moment where I really understood I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I just knew I had to do something in order to feel happy. And I just started looking for the answers in the gym. And it was really the ability to find strength and understand my capabilities and how strong I was and how athletic I was and how powerful I could be if I worked for it. That is what really hooked me. And I was like, I called it, my first company was Unleashed Fitness. So I started off way before this was 24-hour fitness, total Globo gym, personal training, worked at the front desk before they would even hire me, watched dogs to make, there was definitely a lot of in between, but, for me, it was just doing personal training and then eventually CrossFit coaching, which turned into health and wellness coaching and lunch and learns and corporate wellness training. So that was kind of my first company, Unleashed Fitness.
Yeah, that's wild. What was the process of getting picked to go on Real World?
I was just literally a barista at Starbucks, and I gave him a coffee, and we had such a fun conversation, making fun of people that try out for Real World. I'm not even kidding you. It was and that was it. I think that it was like, when I say it was random and I was not prepared for it. I cannot even tell you how true that is. They ask for a picture, so you have to get a picture, and like I just had went skydiving, and so I had this picture of skydiving in my car. So I went to my car and I grabbed it. I was like, will this work? And they're like, yep, that works. And then it was that's really what happened. So I do remember the people that came in to audition, they have a conversation. They say, if you with your name. So like Kyle, what's a word that starts with a K that represents you?
Kangaroo. I don't know. That's the first thing I came up with.
Is that your spirit animal? That's so
it good. Could be. I don't know.
Well, that's so good.
So no joke. When you said that, I was like, what's it? That was like the first thing that came in my head. And I'm like, oh wait. So I thought for a second, I'm like, does that even apply? But then it kind of does in a way.
It does. I'm going to read you something because I have a kangaroo card. Is this you? Are you ready?
All right,
are you loyal, giving, and ready to help others? You focus on the future. You rarely dwell on the past. You're social. You're loving. You recharge with periods of alone time. Your momentum starts slowly, but when in motion, cannot be stopped.
That does sound a lot like me. In a way, it does. I mean, like the helping people. I mean, I've been coaching for over 8 years. I do like alone time, but I'm also social too. So
yeah, I love that. I like randomly, guys, I promise if you're listening, I don't always have like a random selection of spirit animal cards to just pull out.
People are like, man, this Emily chick, she's like, she must carry these cards around with her all the time.
I just literally happen to have them right here. I was doing something right before this, and I love that the kangaroo was right there.
So what did you say? What was your answer when they asked you?
I think I said, what was the E word? It was, what is that? Oh, I said eccentric. I was like, cause I could not, I'm somebody that everyone can't put a label on. And I love that. I'm very much, I want to be different, and I pride myself in being different. And so I think even at that point, I think I was 19, I said eccentric was my E word.
Yeah. That's probably a lot better than kangaroo.
No, kangaroo. Look how much kangaroo meant. That was good. I love it.
I know, but if you didn't have those cards handy.
That is true. You'd have to pull up some YouTube videos and be like, see, look how cool and loyal they are.
Look, they're jacked. Come on now.
Look how high they jump.
They can jump. Their upper body looks pretty jacked. You've seen the videos. They like punch people and fight and stuff. I don't know. They seem
that
tough.
tail is like, I wonder, like, that tail, like if you actually, it's just so ridiculous to think of, like how much of a muscle that is. Like it's just so crazy. It's so bizarre to me.
Kangaroos are like apparently like people in Australia are just like, it's everyday thing. Like
it's like squirrels.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And same with, I was just in Kauai and it's like dolphins, and I'm like, dolphin. And they're like, yeah, that's literally the equivalent of your squirrel. I'm like, I would never, ever get sick of seeing a dolphin. I'm always going to react that way.
Yeah. I've gone on like the dolphin cruise things before. They're pretty neat.
They're so neat. I love animals, especially water animals. I think they're the coolest.
Yeah. It's like a whole different world. We don't even think about it that much. The ocean, this whole different world out there.
I know. I mean, the reason I love it so much is because you know how much we are composed of water, right?
Yep, yep.
And it's the same. It's like this, it's literally the majority of the earth is water, and yet we still know nothing about it. So even if we dig into all the National Geographics and planet Earth, that, you know, that's one, I don't know, 1/100th of what is actually happening. And it's kind of creepy to think about.
Yeah, it's insane. So what part of your fitness journey did you come across CrossFit?
So I had started off as a trainer very early on. So I think it was in 2012 when I first found CrossFit. And I remember it was still at the point when I was washing dogs because, so this is like in training of being a trainer. So I wasn't getting paid to be a trainer yet. And washing dogs, doing the front desk. And I remember I was washing dogs still because I would have horrible calluses and all of my hands would be just like ripped off as like ridiculous psycho that I was. And then I would try to wash dogs. It hurt so bad. I remember just always being in pain. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, like if you do those ridiculous 4-time pull-ups and bar muscle-ups.
Muscle-ups used to always tear my hands apart.
Always. So that's when I found it. And then I really soon after, I found it just because I actually saw a video of, it was funny. They actually just posted this on the CrossFit Instagram of nasty girls. And it was them afterwards crying. And I was like, what the I have to do this. Like what exercise because at that point I'm so competitive and I've always needed some sort of competition to help me feel very Emily, right? So I need that type of edge in whatever aspect it is. And the only thing I could do in the fitness world, once I got into fitness, the only thing that existed was bodybuilding. It was getting on a stage in a bikini. And I was like, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, what else do I do in the fitness world? There's no other option. And so when I found CrossFit, it was so wonderful at the time because it was like, okay, I can compete in this. I can train, you know, I was starting to do those MTV challenges and I wanted to feel like I was prepared for those. And it just was a perfect way for me to get my fix. And then I took the components that I liked of CrossFit and combined that with my background as a trainer and was able to kind of mix and match for my own clients, which was a great way to help people train and dabble into strength training and Olympic lifting.
Yeah, I mean, if one thing CrossFit has done an amazing job of is just putting barbells in more people's hands, you know? I mean, it's definitely changed the game on that front.
Yeah, Olympic lifting would never be as popular as it is today without CrossFit. So, it's awesome. Do you CrossFit yourself?
So I used to do CrossFit, but now I'm pretty much just strictly powerlifting. But
same. Yeah, I do the Olympic lifting about two, sometimes 3 times a week, but I am the same. I definitely took my favorite components of it and that was it.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool transition. I kind of had the same story as you, like all growing up. I mean, bodybuilding was pretty much the only thing there was like from a competition standpoint. So that's what I was interested in. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to be into the gym, I guess it's bodybuilding, but I never really loved the aspect of actually going through with that. Like, I don't know if I really want to do that.
It's miserable. Like I have so much respect for people that do it, but oh my God, I do not want to put my body through that.
Yeah. I mean, and just plus the aspect of getting on stage and Speedo, like that's like a whole different aspect of,
you know what? Do that. It's such dedication and it's so impressive. And I have, if you're listening and you do it, do not think I'm belittling what you do. I think it's an art form, right?
Oh,
and it really is, your body is art, but I know myself so well. I know the eating disorders I used to have and the kind of control freak that I tend to be. It would just put me in a really bad place. And honestly, that's kind of what CrossFit turned into for me eventually. Like it was this like obsessive, I'm never good enough, control, competitiveness that it did turn into that. But then at the same time, when that happened, I stepped away and took the components that I liked from it, and kind of trusted that I would figure it out. So
what was that process like? Just like getting involved and just being super competitive and wanting to, like go to regionals and that whole track?
Yeah. So I got, as soon as I started CrossFit, I knew I wanted to compete in it. There was so many opportunities that I just kept missing the mark. So like when I was on a team for regionals and I ended up going and filming a challenge, an MTV challenge in Thailand. So I missed out. So I always felt like I wanted to make regionals. So I came back. This is probably like 2015. So this is still when it was top 60 for regionals. And I remember training my ass off. Like I'm not there, there's just certain things I'm good at, but when it comes to the open, I'm not a natural cardio person. I'm a power sprint. Like I'm really good at regional events, but not so good at the open events. So I trained my ass off. I remember just giving everything I could for it. And I think I ended up 63rd.
Wow. So really close.
Are you kidding me? Like just shattered, like all my heart it felt like I just got broken up with and trampled, And so in that moment I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do with this? And why do I want this so bad? And that was hard for me because I just wanted it. It was like, it was the first goal that I had set for myself that I could not fulfill. And that drove me nuts. Like no matter what in my life, if I have a goal, I fulfill it. Like that's just how I am in my life. And so that really bothered me. So then I did another, if it's top 20, the reality of me actually making top 20, I know how thin of ability that is, right? So I thought that would be enough for me to just say like, okay, it's not time, but of course it's not because I'm so stubborn. And so I just went for it again. And then at the same time, I actually launched my second company, which was the MPAC. And it was a product business, which was so much different than what I was used to, which is online training. And in that moment of my body just completely shutting down, injury and labrum tears and just really understanding like, oh, okay, this is what happens when you don't listen to your body. And, and that was just and it was cool because in that same time frame, I was learning about adrenals and cortisol and how that affects your hips and how that affects the SI pain and the back pain and things that I never had heard people talk about. And I was like, all right, what do you want? Do you want a successful business or do you want to just be somebody that's constantly trying to make it to regionals, which you don't even really know why you want to make it to regionals? It's just because you said that was a goal and you've never, so it was literally the first goal that I've ever set for myself that I had to let go of. And that was so hard because it's just, we're stubborn and we're type A's. And I felt like a failure, but then in turn, letting that go actually opened up these doors for the MPAC and for training outside that never would have happened had that shift happened in my own life. And then also opening up the door for the Body Awareness Project, which is my business about adrenals and stress and working out for somebody that has those issues. So it was so needed, but it was really, really hard to say that I felt like a failure. I mean, that's an understatement. I really, really hit rock bottom, but looking back, it definitely worked out for the best.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I kind of have the same story. Like when I was in high school, well, actually, since I was a little kid, I wrestled all throughout high school. And my goal was I was going to be a state champion. Like that was like the only goal I had. But then, as I got older and just got burned out on the sport, it just kind of, I hit like that low point where, man, I just don't think this is going to happen. Like I'm putting everything into it. I just don't think it's going to happen. And it hit that low point. But then on turn, it's like, okay, well, that was when I started getting into training. And then after I graduated high school, I got out of the wrestling and moved into just going all in on the training thing. And then that became a new thing. And then that's what led to the building business and everything. So it's like, man, if I would have just kept wrestling, I probably would have never had the fitness side of it.
Totally. Yes. And I'm like, why do I have this chip on my shoulder? Sometimes I feel like, as an athlete or somebody that wants to compete, is that why I'm competitive? Is because I didn't play sports in college or because I didn't, but every time I think that I'm like, if I would have done the things that I think I should have done, make regionals or play soccer in college, I never would have ended up here. So it's so cliche to say, but like, when that door closes, it's because it's supposed to. And so you just got to listen to it. I love that.
Yeah. And you just move on to the next thing and take that competitive spirit. It always is going to stay with you.
Channel it into the business, right? Channel it into, of course, everyone's competitive with themselves. I think that's just to make that clear, I think that's so easy to channel that into the wrong way. Like, competitive with other people. But when I'm talking about competitiveness with self, like really take your numbers, month over month sales, like make that your channel. And it sounds so ridiculous, but it is a very helpful way to take the spirit that you have and put it into a positive light.
Yeah. What's new with the backpack? side of the business.
So good. Oh my God. I wish I have so many things I can't say quite yet, but if we could do like a little additional like 10-minute thing in a couple months. And I would love to tell you some of the great things that are in the works, but it's great. So it's a backpack that turns into a weight training bag.
Mm-hmm.
And so we use water as weight. And I was actually watching the CrossFit Games and just so I went to the hotel and I was like, oh, I can't wait to lift weights. And there was nothing there. So I took my suitcase, I stuffed it with everything I could. I started squatting with it and I was like, this should be a thing. So it's been really fun because my whole concept is strength train, whether it's at your house or when you're traveling, but also what's amazing for me, especially in this kind of go business, I have so much on my plate world, is if I can just take a workout outside and be barefoot, it is just so much more impactful for me as like getting into sunshine and grounding with my feet and all of that stuff that comes with being outside, but I don't lose out on my workout with limited time. So it's been really, really fun. We just launched a second Kickstarter that was funded within 4 hours. And we have some new products coming out in this fall that I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. So that was just pretty much the concept came from, you're like at a hotel, you're like, man, I just wish I had something that could help me work out right now.
Yes. And I was like, well, what can I do? Like if I had a carry-on, like what can I do to convert a carry-on into basically a sandbag? So, sand isn't portable, but water is. Okay. So if I can have access to water at the ocean or in a river, what can I create that holds water? So then it just turned into this, it literally was just a sketch on the plane. And I was like, I think I have to do this. And I was like, I'm so crazy. I don't know. I'm not a backpack person. I actually love backpacks. I've always worn them, but like, I don't know how to even create one. And so I ended up landing in Denver, posting on Facebook. So this is in 2014, posting on Facebook. And I said, I have an idea. What do I do? Does anybody know what to do with this? And literally the only class that I could go to, there's this event called Denver Startup Week. And it's every year. It's a free entrepreneurship. Mark Cuban came last year. It's incredible. It's just a huge hub of people that are starting their own business. And Denver is a huge hub of people starting their own business. And the only class I could go to that day was from idea to product. And I was like, this is meant to be. I'm going to do this. So it took a long time. It took 1.5 years to actually get the Kickstarter going, but there was just so many pieces, right? You had to have someone sew it. You had to prototype it. I had to figure out the water component because I needed something that was not going to bust, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a hydration bag. It's like a weight bag. So that it took a lot of pieces, but we launched on Kickstarter and in 2016 and our first Kickstarter was funded within 4 hours as well. So
that's amazing.
It was so incredible. It was like, okay, this is definitely the push. This is where you need to go. And I'm just so proud of it because you can relate to this too, is like, we're so used to kind of selling ourselves and like training. And there's more and more, as internet and connection becomes more accessible, so does more and more people in our industry, and sometimes not good stuff, right?
Nope.
So we have to kind of weed out the bullshit. But if so it's just so nice to say, take myself out of the equation and here's a product.
Here's a product. Yes.
Yeah. And that feels really good. So I'm really in love with it.
That's awesome.
I got to make sure I'll send you one.
That's awesome. So switching gears a little bit, I did want to talk about nutrition here. Cause again, like I said, you got a lot of talking points.
I do.
At what point did you get fascinated with nutrition? Was it something at an early age or after you got into CrossFit, or what was it?
So I had chronic gut issues growing up, and I also had really bad acne. So two things that I think were completely in alignment with my ability to, I had such bad self-esteem. Like I've always been like, I'm sure of myself. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like I was confident enough to be on reality TV, but on the afterthought, watching myself on reality TV, I felt destroyed because I would just get so mad at myself about the way my skin was and the way my hair was. And so my self-confidence really wasn't where it should be. And it never had been. And so I was always looking for answers because I wanted so badly to fix it. And when I found nutrition, initially it wasn't nutrition, it was dieting because it was the typical bodybuilding diet. So that's how I first got into, all right, I have the gym program. I was still in the mountains before I moved back to Denver. And I was doing the very low fat, kind of multiple meals a day. And
The traditional bodybuilding diet.
totally. Right. I was like, I guess I'm going to be in a bikini. So as eventually as that, I was seeing results, but my hormones were still out of whack. I remember being on a ski lift. I was about ready to snowboard, and I love snowboarding. It's my favorite thing to do. And I pulled out, it was like a Lara bar when they first came out.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, it's too many calories.
Yep.
And in that moment, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm on a mountain, I'm starving, and all I can think about is food. And I'm not enjoying snowboarding. I'm not enjoying anything because I just care. I want to change my body so bad, but this sucks. This sucks. I hate this. So I remember always having issues with it. So as soon as I found CrossFit, it was quite a while. That's when I connected the dots with paleo. And the only thing that got me to try it, I'm not even kidding you, because I was anti-fat. Like that's what I knew. It was probably 2000, I guess it was before I started. So 2011, it was, somebody saying, well, it was Rob Wolf's book. And he said, it will help with acne. And I was just like, oh my God, what? I will do it. And so
sign me up. I'm doing it.
Sign me up. So I remember going into my cupboard, and I was so broke. I had no money. I was just like throwing everything away. And then I felt bad. So I gave it to a homeless guy, and it was all the whole grains and oatmeals and, the shitty butter that was low fat. And I just remember being like, I'm ready to do this. And then I was like, oh my God, I have no money to grocery shop. So my mom gave me like $99 to go get some groceries. And I was like, okay, this is going to happen. I got avocados, I got bacon, I got all of it. And it was just, my first I was like called Bacon and Skinny Jeans. And I started blogging about the experience, and it just changed my life because not only did I no longer feel like I had to count calories, it was like, oh my God, my brain is working. I've had a ton of concussions, so that it like instantly changed who I was. And my skin cleared up. So I was happy. My gut issues went away. Probably it was like all connected, like brain, skin, gut, how connected those are. And it just completely changed my life because nobody was talking about it in the world that I was in. And I just could not even wait to tell the world about it. So I just went crazy. It was like, this is what I want to share with the world. So that's how I dabbled. And I love it. I love eating fat. I love teaching people how to eat fat. I'm not keto by any means. If you're listening to this, I want to make sure that's clear. You can be fat adapted without having to be super, super low carb, because I just don't think for women that's completely sustainable. At least some, most of the women I work with. So I love it. I love playing around and guinea pigging with myself to see what works. And I'm always open to trying new things. But one thing that I know is true is if I cut fat, I am a miserable human. So I make sure that I always eat it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, it's nutrition. A lot of times people have problems just with the sustainability factor. So, part of this is just finding something that you can stick with. So it's like if you find a diet that makes you feel, look, perform better, and it's something you enjoy and can stick to long term, you're going to be successful. I think that's one of the biggest issues people have. They just can't build that consistency because they think of it as a diet and not really a lifestyle.
Totally. And I think it's so when you're somebody that's been deprived from calories and you saw results that way, but then you start to shift that mindset and you can still see results without deprivation, you just get excited about it. So like food becomes fun again. And we're so used to food becoming, if we're hungry, it's like, if you look at the diet culture, if you're hungry, it's negative. If you are hungry, it's the bad thing. So I even recently saw on Instagram someone doing like appetite suppressant lollipops. I freaked out. I was like, are you kidding me? Because like for me, when I'm hungry, I'm like, that's such a good feeling, right? Like I'm excited because I'm fueling my body. Mm-hmm. But that process, that relationship took years and years and years because I used to think if I was hungry, I'm hungry. This is a trap. I feel bad. I have to eat something. I'm going to get fat. This food that I'm eating is making me fat. And it's just horrible. Like it's such a horrible mindset. So yes, when you find something that can be liberating and you love it, then, oh my God, that's what we want for anybody, right?
Yeah. Just trying to get that, repairing the relationship with food. You know, I think, I mean, I've worked with a lot of people too. They say they want one certain goal. And then once you dig in, you're like, oh man, like that goal you want, whether it's fat loss, performance, whatever, it's like your relationship with food is not allowing you to reach that goal, whatever it might be.
I think my favorite thing to say is like your relationship with food is the most important relationship other than the one with yourself. Like your relationship with yourself also defines the relationship with food. But if you see it as a relationship, it can help you understand it a little bit better, right? So when we are just in that tumultuous, we hate ourselves because we're hungry, or we deprive and then we binge, we are constantly in that state of unworthiness and shame and guilt. And it's so true. It's like finding that relationship takes so much time, and it never is a final journey. It's always going to take a process. But when you find it, it is just the best.
Yep. You said that you had multiple concussions.
I did.
What's that from?
Oh, because I'm just a nut job adrenaline junkie, I think. So I think it's, I never let saying like brain injury defines me. And I think a lot of people sometimes can get to that point. And we all have had some sort of head trauma. I think there's nobody that's lived a life that's not hit their head one way or the other, right? But I have had 8 substantial ones. Which has really defined how I see the world. And also what helped me was seeing how that actually affected my gut issues at a very young age. So when I was 3 or 4, I had my first concussion. And since 3 or 4, since I can remember, I've always had gut issues and stomach pains and cramps. And so just for people that might not know, it's so fun because you understand that when you hit your brain and this gut brain connection, you actually cause gut permeability, intestinal permeability. So it's kind of this chicken egg story for me. Like, why do I have all these food issues? Well, maybe because I had all these brain issues. And so it helped understand for me why I had those things happen. And then also why it's so important for me I have to be so dialed in, for the work that I do, running businesses and creating, whatever it is, when you're just outputting a ton, if I did not have my nutrition and supplements dialed down the way I do, and not to say I don't cheat, but like if I drink too much, oh my God, it's like, my brain is like, oh, like it takes me days to feel normal again because I'm more sensitive to that alcohol for somebody that's had a lot of glutamate in the brain from concussion. So it's just important for me. I love that I'm able to optimize and biohack my body to be able to perform the way I do. And that's why, again, with nutrition, why I'm so passionate by it, because if I didn't have that piece, I wouldn't be able to do it.
I think gut health is going to be kind of like the next wave of things that gets like really popular in nutrition. It kind of already is in a way, but I think it's just more.
Yeah. And and that's my thing to say, like as a nutritional therapy practitioner, like that's my biggest takeaway for people is gut health is so much more than a probiotic, right? So when you look at stress, cortisol, adrenals, that actually, even just having cortisol in your system causes intestinal permeability. So you could be eating the perfect diet and you could be digesting things and taking a probiotic, but stress will always cause gut issues. And your gut heals so quickly. But for somebody that bloats all the time, or someone that burps or has acid reflux, it is a huge piece of figuring out, like you have to figure these pieces out, because you cannot have optimal brain health unless you have optimal gut health. You can't have good skin unless you have good gut health. You can't have a good workout unless you are absorbing the protein that you're trying to eat to help with your recovery. So that was huge for me, is like, going back, and it doesn't matter what's on your plate. It doesn't matter the workout. It matters how you absorb these nutrients. And all nutrient absorption happens in the gut.
Do you recommend like fermented foods like kimchi and things like that?
For sure. So I'm a huge believer, instead of just guessing with the probiotics, I think eating your probiotic foods is best. So I do kimchi and sauerkraut quite a bit. I'm on the fence about kombucha. If you make your own kombucha, go to town, but just be careful when you do kombucha, because it's can be very sugary for it to be legal, for it to be on the counter, right?
Yeah,
so it can't be too alcoholic. So just don't do too much kombucha. And then I actually look more so that's kind of our create good bacteria and help the bacteria be happy. But the biggest piece that people miss is if you do not have a good home for that bacteria, nothing will matter. So if we're trying to have a probiotic rich bacteria filled gut, but we don't have a lined intestine that's kind of just doing its job right, then we're always going to hit the same problem. Mm-hmm. So I first look at gut healing. And so this, more importantly, is digesting your food appropriately, working on stress, and then also healing your gut lining, which is what we talk about with bone broths and collagens. I have a tummy tonic tea that I love. And then I also love marshmallow root is a huge one for me. So all of those can help heal the gut. And then in turn, you can start replenishing the good bacteria. But if you have leaky gut and you bloat all the time, a probiotic's not going to help. We have to first heal it, and then we can kind of get into that next step. So yeah, I love the gut. It's my favorite thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
This might be my thing, Kyle. This might be my talking point that I love the most.
This is like your number one talking point. We waited to the end. You could have started with it.
Yeah. So I did the body awareness project that I launched is an educational course plus a box. So you actually get shipped the essentials to heal. And the next, I just finished the adrenals and stress and cortisol, but my one I'm really excited about next is actually the gut. So I'm really excited for that to happen in the fall.
That's awesome. Emily, this has been a lot of fun. I think we could go on all day. We should probably do another show sometime.
I think we should. I'm down with that. And I would love to have you on Meathead Hippie as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, how can people get more information about you? What are all the links to all the projects you have going on?
Totally. So I think the best place is if you just go to my Instagram, Emily Schromm, SCHROMM. And that's also my website, emilyschromm.com. And you can get on a newsletter. And then I would hop onto my podcast. If you're listening to podcasts, we'll have Kyle on soon. Meathead Hippie. And Hippie is spelled HIPPIE. And that's just a good place to kind of get a weekly dose of what's going on and all of the things that I'm doing in my world.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll put all the links in the show notes.
Thank you. I appreciate this so much. This is great.
Yeah, this was fun. Cool. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Absolute Strength Podcast. I know I had a ton of fun producing it for you. And before you go, if you could just drop me some feedback, I'd love it. I love reading your feedback. So you can go over to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, write a little review, what you think of the podcast. I absolutely love it. I read every single one. But it's cool if you don't want to do that. I get it. No one wants to really go out of their way to do anything, let alone write a review. But I want to get your feedback. So drop me a line on Instagram at Hunt Fitness, or on Facebook, Kyle Hunt, or on Twitter, or send a pigeon or something. I don't know. I just want to hear your feedback. So if you want to give me some feedback, let me know what you think. Hit me up on Instagram at Hunt Fitness. And before you go, I have one last thing I want to say. I have a program I want you to check out. It's actually called the Absolute Strength Program, and the link is in the show notes. It's a program I designed to help increase my own squat, bench, and deadlift. And I got pretty strong off of it, and I think you're going to like it. It's a great book. Thousands of people have got amazing results from it. It's in the show notes. All right, guys. Until next time, until next episode, peace.